Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The Homeless Man Who Owned a Home. The true story of Mr. Lawson. On a gray, rainy morning in New York, taxis honked their horns on the soggy streets of Manhattan. Umbrellas clashed on the crowded sidewalks, and the air carried the smell of wet asphalt mingled with the hot coffee of street vendors. The city beat at its frenetic pace, impervious to fatigue, indifferent to those it left behind. At the heart of this urban bustle stood, motionless and majestic, the Wellington Grand, a jewel of architecture and refinement, nicknamed the Palace of the Powerful. Located on Fifth Avenue, its immense limestone facade and golden doors seemed to defy time and rain. Inside, a world completely different from the hustle and bustle outside. The Italian marble floor reflected ivory and champagne. Huge bohemian crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a soft, golden light, as if the day itself were filtered through so as not to disturb the serenity of the space. Carved columns supported a hand-painted ceiling, and in the garnet velvet armchairs, businessmen read the New York Times while mass celebrities sipped $25 lattes. The receptionists, dressed to the nines, wore the impeccable smiles they were taught on their first day of training. Behind the counter, Kyle Matthews, 28, with slicked-back hair, a tailored tie, and boundless ambition, was booking a last-minute reservation for a Texas senator. But at 8:42 sharp, like a silent signal to shatter the illusion of perfection, the revolving door of the entrance stopped brutally. A gust of cold air rushed into the hall, and with him, a man. Everyone looked up. He wasn't there for a selfie or a lecture. He wore an old brown coat, threadbare at the sleeves and torn at the shoulders. His hunched figure moved slowly, dragging behind him a worn army bag covered in stains and pulled threads. His boots, soggy and cracked, left small muddy puddles on the immaculate marble. His grizzled beard, thick and unkempt, fell over a face tanned by cold and hardship. His eyes were tired but alert. A strange light shone in them, a mixture of lucidity, pain, and determination. A smell of rain, earth, and loneliness spread around him, breaking the sophisticated fragrance of the place. Several customers wrinkled their noses. A woman dressed in Chanel stood up in disgust, whispering to her companion. How could they let him in? The receptionist, Kyle, stared at him, frozen. He said nothing for a few seconds, unable to believe that this man had dared to cross the threshold of the Wellington. Then he recovered, raised his eyebrows, and, in a dry, hushed tone, "Sir, I'm sorry, but you cannot stay here. Access to the lobby is reserved for guests." The man stopped, slowly placing his bag at his feet with a strange, almost ceremonial care. He raised his head and crossed his arms. His shoulders were broad, his back hunched, but he exuded a muted authority that no one yet understood. Then he spoke. His voice was hoarse, hollowed by years and cold, but each word was articulated with icy precision. "I would like to access the suite Lawson." Kyle gave a nervous start. He tried to suppress a laugh. "The Lawson suite?" He tapped nervously on his keyboard, as if he were about to check something, then shook his head with a small, mocking smile. "I'm sorry, but this sequel is reserved exclusively for the hotel owner." The man nodded slowly, as if expecting it. He looked deep into the young receptionist's eyes, and simply said, "Exactly. I am William Lawson, and I would like to see my property." Silence fell abruptly around the counter, as if the air itself had frozen. The quiet clink of a cup against a saucer echoed through the lobby, followed by the distant crackle of a fluorescent light on the ceiling. All eyes were on this man, this stranger with the threadbare coat, the worn boots, the unwavering gaze. Then some laughed, incredulous smiles, and suddenly, bursts of nervous laughter crossed the room. A young blonde man, wearing designer sweatpants and ridiculously large sunglasses despite the gray sky outside, stifled a loud laugh from a designer armchair not far from the counter. Holding his latest iPhone, he discreetly filmed the scene, zooming in on the ragged man. "Yo, look at this, guys, it's amazing," he whispered, talking to his camera. He straightened up and addressed his 2 million subscribers in a theatrical tone. "A homeless man just claimed to be the owner of the Wellington Grand. This isn't a joke. The owner of the palace, apparently. It's the end of the world. Then, between two laughs, he added, maybe he confused it with a homeless shelter. The laughter of Trevor Banks, an influencer with a fragile digital reputation, quickly spread throughout the room. Customers in the lobby turned toward the stage. A few phones were discreetly raised. The humiliation, silent but viral, was beginning to spread. Kyle, the receptionist, now smiling half embarrassed and half contemptuous, gave a small wave to the security guard stationed near the elevator. Two men in black suits, visibly well-built and well-trained, approached calmly but firmly. Their posture left no doubt as to their intention. Eject the intruder without causing an uproar. Kyle, sighing, said to them in a mechanical tone, take him outside. Gently but firmly. One of the officers placed a hand on the man's shoulder. But just as the second was about to grab him by the arm, William Lawson raised his hand. Slowly, calmly, solid as a rooted oak. He crouched down without brusqueness and opened his threadbare military bag. The seams creaked. His movements had the controlled slowness of those who know that time can be an ally. He took one out-laminated file, slightly warped from the moisture. He placed it on the counter in front of Kyle with almost ceremonial precision. I advise you to read this, he said, his voice still hoarse, but implacably calm. Kyle, initially puzzled, reluctantly opened the file. His gaze quickly scanned the first few pages, then slowed. His eyebrows furrowed. Inside, impeccable documents. The deed of ownership of the Wellington Grand Hotel, dated 1993, with a name in capital letters, William H. Lawson. The original articles of association of the Lawson Corporation, mentioning its majority stake. Color photos of him, younger, in dark suit, cutting the red ribbon at the inauguration, surrounded by political figures and the press. And finally, a official letter, header Golden Law Firm Langston and Pierce LLP, summoning William H. Lawson at a meeting of the Advice D Administration, this very day, at 10 a.m., in the hotel's private business room. The hubbub suddenly stopped. The phones went down. Trevor Banks's laugh caught in his throat. A waiter dropped a spoon. Even the security guards exchanged an uncertain look, their hands gently moving away from the man. The silence, this time, was different. It weighed. It oppressed. Kyle, pale, took a step back, as if he had touched something hot. I'll call the director right away. He punched in a code on his handset and whispered a few words. Less than a minute later, a hurried noise echoed on the marble, nervous, hurried footsteps coming from the spiral staircase of the upper floor. It was Martin Graves, the general manager of the Wellington Grand. A midnight blue three-piece suit, slicked back hair, the look of a Wall Street CEO, and the gaze of a man who hates surprises. As he walked downstairs, he was already frowning. What's going on, Kyle? You told me that. But he stopped when he saw the man in front of him. His eyes widened. William didn't move. He looked Martin straight in the eyes. He didn't need to talk anymore. Everything was in the documents. Martin approached the counter, his hands a little shaky. He took the file, leafed through, slowly, then faster, then slowly again. His hands turned pale. He turned a page, then another. Then he came across a photo, the one from the 1993 inauguration. A smiling man in a dark suit, holding a red ribbon, surrounded by powerful men. It was his. Younger, thinner, but without a doubt, it was William Lawson. Martin took a step back, as if he had seen a ghost. He whispered, barely audible, "My God, it's really him." William Lawson wasn't always the man with the worn coat and threadbare bag people mistook for a homeless man. He was once one of New York's most respected and admired entrepreneurs. An iconic figure of the American dream, forged through hard work, perseverance, and courage. Born in a modest apartment in the Bronx, William grew up in a difficult environment. His mother, Mary Lawson, a single and courageous woman, worked day and night as a housekeeper to feed her 3 children. From a young age, William understood that he would have to fight to exist, to rise above the rest. At 17, armed with an old broom, a few cleaning products, and the will to never give up, he started his first business, a cleaning company that he grew, neighborhood by neighborhood, until it became a thriving SME. But that was just the beginning. At 33, with heightened ambition and a keen business sense, William decided to invest in luxury real estate. He dreamed of offering New York a symbol of accessible refinement, a place where elegance would blend with humanity. Thus was born the Wellington Grand, its flagship project, a sumptuous hotel that quickly became a Manhattan jewel. William was proud of what he had built, a hotel that bore not only his name, but also his values: respect, dignity, inclusion. But in 2012, life dealt him the hardest blow. His only daughter, Emily, a bright and lively young woman, died tragically in a car accident. It was as if the ground had fallen away from beneath her feet. Grief consumed him. He abruptly left the business world, handing over his responsibilities to a charitable foundation established in Emily's memory, dedicated to helping struggling families, the homeless, and disadvantaged young entrepreneurs. He then disappeared from the media radar. But it wasn't an escape, nor a retreat. It was a quest. For years, William traveled across the United States, on foot, often penniless, sleeping in homeless shelters, sharing their bread, their stories, their suffering. He wanted to rediscover a simple life, far from the gilding and pretense. He wanted to understand those society had forgotten. He was a changed man, transformed by pain and compassion. But that day, that rainy morning in New York, he had returned to the Wellington Grand, not to claim his inheritance, nor to settle back into luxury, but to observe, to see how, behind the golden doors and polite smiles, those who, like him once, had nothing were treated. The hotel bore his name. It was supposed to be a refuge, a symbol of humanity, of respect. What he had seen so far, however, had deeply disappointed him. Contemptuous stares, doors almost slammed in some people's faces, mocking whispers, guards ready to expel without a word. All this, in the very place that was supposed to embody his values, left a bitter taste in his throat. William knew he could no longer remain silent. It was time to make its voice heard, to remind the Wellington Grand of what it should be. And to those who had forgotten, he would show that true power lay not in gold or marble, but in respect for every human being. The video of Trevor Banks, posted on TikTok with the mocking and cruel title, "The Tramp Who Thought He Was Rich," was an immediate and dazzling success. Thousands of views in a few hours, laughing comments, sarcastic shares. For many, William Lawson was nothing more than an eccentric vagabond, a grotesque caricature. But a few hours later, Trevor posted again. This time, the video showed the laminated file, the yellowed photos, the deed, and, most importantly, a brief interview captured between takes, in which William calmly explained his story. Within hours, public opinion changed radically. The mockery turned to astonishment. Mistrust gave way to compassion. And soon, to a wave of admiration. Social media went wild. Traditional media picked up on the story. Journalists came knocking on the doors of the Wellington Grand. 3 days later, in the hotel's large conference room, transformed for the occasion, a crowd of journalists, businessmen, and citizens who had come out of curiosity had gathered. William Lawson, now dressed in a simple but impeccably cut suit, stepped onto the stage. His face, marked by trials, his eyes filled with determination and wisdom, captivated attention. He spoke, his voice calm but powerful. "I didn't come back to humiliate anyone, nor to reclaim what was mine, but to test the soul of my own empire, to see if, amidst the guilt and glitter, there remained a spark of humanity." A deep silence followed his words. "Today I saw the truth, and this truth demands change." Then he announced a vast plan of reforms intended to restore the hotel to its true values. A complete program of training in ethics, dignity, and humanity, mandatory for every employee, from the janitor to the security guard's security, so that everyone understands that a smile and a look matter more than a client's appearance or wealth. The creation of a financing line dedicated to housing projects for the homeless, because the Wellington Grand is not just a luxury hotel, but a responsible social actor in the city. And above all, a golden rule, from now on displayed in gold letters on the main door. Every customer deserves respect, no matter what they look like. The change was rapid and uncompromising. Kyle, the mocking receptionist, was fired. The Director General, Martin Graves, a rigid and cold man, was replaced by an exceptional woman, Angela Monroe. Angela wasn't a figure from the hushed world of luxury hotels. She came from the inner city of Brooklyn, had lived in poverty herself, and had spent the last 10 years running a homeless shelter. Her appointment was a powerful symbol. As for William, he chose not to return to the luxurious suite that bore his name. Instead, he decided to settle into a small room on the top floor, a modest refuge sometimes used by night workers. Far from the gilded salons, he rediscovered the simplicity he had always cherished. Every day, he walked the corridors, engaged in conversation with customers, listened to the stories of the cleaning ladies, shared his meals with the drivers, the waiters, and the employees forgotten by the splendor. He had become both the guardian of the soul of the Wellington Grand and a man among men. The Wellington Grand was no longer just a luxury hotel. He had become a living symbol, an example of humanity and respect. And in a corner of the hall, a bronze plaque was installed, engraved with an inscription that quickly went around the city. To those we look at without seeing. To those who are judged too quickly. True luxury is humanity. William Lawson.